All right, gentlemen, I have been hyping this episode up since Luke and I started this little rewatch of ours. Well, rewatch for me, first time watch for Luke. Since the episode started, Luke, when we first started this episode, what are the two episodes that I was hyping you up for were Through the Looking Glass, the season 3 finale, and this episode, The Constant. And we are here, season 4, episode 5, as stated by many, the best episode of Lost ever made. Some could make the argument that it only went downhill from here. And the number one best episode of television of the 21st century, according to the Ringer's top 100 episodes of television of the 21st century. Now, granted, I don't know how valid that list is, considering the fact that half that list is reality TV, and I don't really count reality TV as like TV in general. Is just slop with just, camera and bad actors pretending to be like real people on there. But that's just me. I know I'm very vastly in the minority there, but I'm joined by not just one Luke, but two Lukes, my franchise addicts, Luke as well, my partner in crime who's been doing these Paul Thomas Anderson rewatches with me. In fact, he is such a trooper that we are not only doing this today, but we are also recording the longest of our Paul Thomas Anderson rewatches later today, that being Magnolia. So thank you for hopping on. You and me reviewed The Leftovers back in December, when you came on my channel for the first time. And so I think that's kind of like a good starting point to talk about this episode. This is going to be like a traditionalist Lost recap in the way that we usually do this, where we're kind of just breaking down the plot and like what it means going forward, because I think any diehard Lost fan knows that this one is a special one. This is one where I don't know if it was just, again, the writer's strike and the shortened season this time around, just forcing them to really put all their chips into one basket. I don't know if they were just cooking with a different kind of drug than they usually did when they were coming up with the crazy ideas for the show. But so Luke reviews. I want to start with you. I've been hyping.
You're full naming me.
Yes, I am. I have to in this case. I have I've been hyping this episode up for 2 years, and now after having finally seen it, what are your initial thoughts on The Constant?
Yeah, I remember even asking you like towards the first episodes. I'm like, I know there's like one episode later on that's like hyped as the most. You told me it's The Constant. Okay, I'm gonna wait till Constant. Now it's been like a year and a half. So and now it's like, yeah, that lived up to it. Best episode of all time. I don't know. That's asking a lot.
A couple of other episodes that I'm like, I don't know about that.
That's asking a lot. But purely as like a self-isolated thing, it's Lost at its absolute peak, and it all boils down to just a guy trying to get a girl's number, which is like, if you can boil it down to something like that, and it still works, I think that's a sign of as high concept that it is. Because and we're throwing more invented stuff at here, and I'm guessing that's going to be a common thing going forward. But as a one episode thing, one character, bang, it's like perfect TV.
Exactly. The key to telling any sort of a great story is always to keep it simple, keep it boiled down to one simple, basic thing. Luke, franchise addict. So first question is, did you watch this episode in real time when it first aired?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you did? So
2008. So yep. I started high school in 2006.
Okay.
When I was a freshman in high school, I was not watching Lost week to week. So the first couple seasons of the show. But fortunately, I knew some upperclassmen that had bought the DVDs. So I caught up as fast as I could, running through the Lost DVDs, just at like before binge watch everything up to when the next season was going to come out, because we had some time in between. And so I believe starting season 3, episode 1, I watched week to week for the rest of the series.
Yeah. And it definitely shows. Like I said, everybody knows this is the writer's strike season. This is the shortened season. And
we were terrified the show was never going to come back.
Yeah, well, that's the thing too, because Through the Looking Glass, he was also watching the show in real time, and he was telling us as well about how, again, because the scheduling of the episodes at the time was so chaotic and all over the place. Like, you had the first 6 episodes of season 3, and then they went on that break, and you're like, are they ever going to come back? And then thankfully they did in 2007, but then the strike happened, and in a way, not only was the strike, I personally think, the best thing for this show, but also in a way it kind of ended up changing television forever, because the way that Lost was released, its episodes for its last 3 seasons kind of ended up being the go-to for television in general going forward, in terms of airing all of its episodes in like a successive kind of couple of weeks stretch in one TV season, no breaks, and a much, much shortened episode count. This season, again, only 14 episodes, only like 13 weeks, I think, because of how they split up the season finale. And so in comparison to last season, which, again, some banger episodes in season 3 for sure, but just last season just felt like an absolute slog. This season, man, they hit the ground running and they do not stop. Like, we're only on episode 5, and it already feels like we've hit like a major midpoint of the season, considering that not only is this obviously such a intrinsically insanely good Desmond episode as well. Desmond, who's kind of like become sort of the unsung hero of the show, at least for this middle section. It's also way more of an important plot episode than I remembered initially. You know, this is the first instance where we get the Kahana, the ship that has been the freighter ship that has been docked off the island since the end of last season. This is the first instance in which we would meet Kevin Durant's character, Martin Keamy, not basketball player Kevin Durant, actor Kevin Durant. I have to make that distinction. The Kevin Durant who played the Blob in X-Men Origins, who becomes a major antagonist this season. Not to mention the fact that even though, again, this episode is mostly concentrated on Desmond and Daniel and Saeed's attempts to save him as his mind is hopping back and forth through time, it also is very, very important in terms of continuing to sow the seeds of like who this mastermind is that has sent the freighter, who is the shadow, you know, who is the puppet master that is pulling all these strings that are influencing everything that are going on and off throughout the island. And obviously, this is also the season that introduced the flash forwards. But the Desmond flashbacks up until this point have always been really interesting because it's funny, the only traditionalist Desmond we've only gotten 2 traditionalist Desmond flashbacks at this point. The season 2 finale, Live Together, Die Alone, and then the Catch-22 episode near the end of season 3 when him, Hurley, Jin, and Charlie find Naomi for the first time. But so this sort of storytelling structure that was introduced in this episode was first introduced in Desmond's first flashback episode in season 3, Flashes Before Your Eyes, in which he basically, the entire episode is one elongated flashback story that is meant to elicit and show that after long exposure to the electromagnetism, after spending however many years he was down in the Swan Station for 3 years. There you go. After spending 3 years in that Swan Station, not to mention the fact that, you know, after being that close to the source of the explosion when the hatch exploded, he now has obviously been gifted with this weird, like, kind of time resonance ability. And throughout season 3, we obviously saw that he was using his flash forward abilities in order to stop Charlie from dying, right? And in this episode, as Luke, as you were saying, this season has pretty much been hammering us over the head with like, okay, time travel. Like the seeds are being sown here very heavily. And this is probably the first instance in which we really got it. Not to mention the fact that I think in addition to, you know, obviously the Desmond Penny of it all, this episode is as good as it is because of the way in which it is, I think, a sole episode in terms of how it utilizes the storytelling with the flash forwards in a way that I don't think any episode of Lost before this or since this has done. And this is where they're actually incorporating the actual flashback, flash forward structure as an actual device within the episode, as opposed to it just being like kind of the B plot, for lack of a better statement.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up that just from a live watching standpoint, The Constant was aired exactly a year after Flashes Before Our Eyes.
Oh.
So there's a meta narrative going on within the show of like literally when Desmond is having time dilation and like moving forward and backward in time and stuff like that, that is literally happening to us, the audience, a year later. We get to rejoin back in on his kind of time travel for The Constant. So this is like, I'll throw this in there too. Desmond had become everyone's favorite character by this time. He kind of took the place of Jack because he got to do a lot of the like wholesome, like leadership, you know, being good to people type stuff that Jack had kind of left as he has just gotten more and more caught up in, you know, the Kate of everything and, you know, just being this destructive force that needs to find every answer to everything always.
Yeah.
So Desmond kind of took over the heart of the show, kind of the big male lead that everyone supported. Sawyer was getting there, but Desmond kind of took the heart of the show. And that's why I think this episode works so well, is because you had all the time with him before. He had turned into most people's favorite side character. and then you get just walloped with this episode.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, again, the Desmond Penny love story of all of kind of, again, it's funny because on last week's episode, Luke and I were talking about how one of the, because the episode before this is the Cade episode, Eggtown, how one of the kind of weaknesses, I would say, of this stretch of the show that became beyond apparent as time went on is Lost's emphasis on its white male characters and how every single female character on the show was kind of defined by obviously their attachment to a male figure. But I feel like Desmond is the one guy is the one character that was able to kind of escape from that, because the thing that's established so well is the fact that because his arc is he's trying to get back to this love that he lost, that he screwed up. It's already established that he is kind of already a flawed, jaded character, and the show has been punishing him for it. Ultimately, the show, the island, the meta narrative, what have you, he has been punished for consistently from the moment that we've met him. And his whole goal is to get back to this one love that he screwed up. So in terms of the meta narrative of this episode, you're right, because not only is it he's physically trying to find a way back to Penny, in this instance, it literally is the theme of the episode as well, in the sense of he is trying to make up for kind of how he screwed up in the past. And, it's funny because Luke and I were talking about how in Desmond's intro episode, they were being a little bit on the nose in terms of, oh, Desmond, you're a coward. Oh, you always run away from things. And it was kind of being a little bit forced in the head. But, you really see how that comes full circle this time around. Luke Reviews, what did you think of Lost, of the utilization, or rather kind of the traditionalist structure that we've been used to in this episode, the flash forwards and then the flashbacks and then now the flash forwards being kind of flipped on its head in terms of a new way that we've never really seen before on the show?
Yeah, Lost has always been ahead of the game with its own structure. We've criticized this for doing that thing in like the beginning of season 2, where we're seeing the same episode 3 times from 3 different perspectives. Yes. Like, okay, we get it. Just move on.
You're so clever. Oh, great.
Or at the end of season 3, when you're like, okay, these flashbacks seem kind of weird. Like, why is Jack so depressed? Oh, they were flash forwards the whole time. Mm-hmm. Okay, I see. And now this to finally acknowledge it like as a narrative thing, not just like we're cutting between 2 timelines. We literally are, but it's affecting the plot in the current timeline. So again, just to keep inventing and seeing what we have, what we can do. And again, it's just they're really like starting to invent stuff now. It's like, okay, yeah, when you go through the barrier, you spaz out a bit, and I'm just wondering how much more they're gonna do it, because this is where it starts to get like, okay,
don't you worry, it won't get any more convoluted than that.
No sarcasm.
Nope, not at all. But I do think I wanted to point out that one of the key aspects from just a writing and structural standpoint is adding in the Daniel Faraday character, and then getting somebody as talented as Jeremy Davies to play him. Super compelling character. That could have been a nothing burger part. Basically, you're just explaining things to the audience so that the plot mechanics work. But he's such a compelling actor, and he just does weird stuff all the time. So every single time he's talking and explaining stuff, you're all in, even though he's just basically doing a data dump for you. Really brilliant. And he is so effective in this episode, working, because he's essentially the second lead.
Yeah.
I know Saeed is, kind of the constant for Desmond as like his only friend that he knows when he's between time. But I mean, Jeremy Davies is like really carrying a lot of this episode.
Yeah, very much.
Me and Dom kind of talked about this, like with the Mikhail character. His only purpose is to spout exposition. So what do? You make him like Ukrainian, you give him an eye patch, you give him a badass accent, you just dial everything to 11, and he's just gonna deliver exposition. And it's kind of
true.
Kind of similar here.
If you need a character that just delivers exposition, you give them some really, really unmistakably unforgettable traits, and we absolutely got that with Mikhail, and we're getting that with Daniel Faraday this season. Again, Faraday, a little bit of definitely a fan favorite character. Again, this is just as much a Daniel episode as it is a Desmond episode, considering that Daniel literally is introduced to us as this kind of scientist who is, I believe, a theoretical physicist. He already is introduced as like kind of of got this intrinsic understanding of the island in a way that none of the survivors obviously do. He's kind of introduced at this phase of the show in order to kind of elevate us and be like, okay, this was a survivor show up until this point. Then it was sort of like a Lord of the Flies, us versus them situation. And now it's really becoming a science fiction show. And this was the first real instance of that.
Well, we're starting to learn more that people from the ship and people that came over on the helicopter all have different motives.
Yes.
They're not all like together as a corporation coming to save these people. Like Naomi had the picture. So is she working with Penny? But we know it's not technically Penny's boat because that's what Charlie told us. So like, you know, you're starting to learn like what is Faraday actually doing here? What is his motivation to being on the island? Do they really need him? Like all the rest of the crew seems super annoyed with him, so he must not be like all that important, but he is kind of the most important person.
And that's, again, also why this episode taking place on the Kahana is just as crucial, because you're right, getting into kind of the figures, because up until this point, we've only met the people who landed on the island from the Kahana. But now that we're back there and we're starting to see the dynamics there, because that also dovetails with the Fisher Stevens character as well, who's kind of there to be like the impetus to show, oh, this is what's going to happen to Desmond if they don't fix this. For all those who don't know, what's his name from Succession? Jesus, I already forgot his name. Hugo.
He's basically playing Hugo again.
Yeah, pretty much. That's Fisher Stevens. It's always unmistakable for me for that kind of like
he's
oversized
so good
neck,
in
that super
Succession.
skinny neck. But he's kind of there. What's interesting too is not only is he there again to show what will happen to Desmond if they don't fix this, but also he is there to kind of show that like, oh, just because Penny didn't send the boat doesn't mean that she's somehow still in Kahana. Again, all the seeds are there in order to kind of tell you who is kind of the shadow master behind this, who sent the Kahana, who is it that wants Ben dead. All the seeds have kind of been placed there throughout it. And in fact, the person who is the shadow master is in this episode too. You just have to like, again, really be paying attention because they don't tell you who it directly is for a couple of episodes. But I guess this is a perfect point to kind of dive into what the hell the plot of this is for anybody out there who has not seen this episode. So like I said, this picks up after the events of episode 3, in which Lapidus, Saeed, and Desmond take off from the island and head towards the freighter. They're, before they took off, Daniel tells Frank to follow the coordinates that he set exactly and not deviate it in even a little bit. They're flying towards the ship. They end up going through a storm. They deviate, I think, like by just like a fraction of a node. All of a sudden, Desmond immediately flashes back to him being in an army barracks, and I want to say it's like 1996, I think. And then when it flashes back to the helicopter, he's immediately confused. He doesn't know where he is. He doesn't know what's going on. Saeed literally has to forcibly restrain him because he thinks that it's 1996 and he doesn't know who anybody is. They get to the ship, the Kahana. They meet everybody on there. Again, Martin Keamy, Kevin Durant's character, and immediately you can tell upon meeting this guy, they're like, oh, like this dude is bad news. He's got that kind of like sinister sneer, that kind of whole, oh, I know better than you, sort of like kind of posturous look that shows it like, oh, this guy is bad news ultimately. And you can immediately tell in the interactions between Saeed, Lapidus, and this guy Keamy that like, oh, something is going on. Like not everybody that is on this ship is kind of, on the same page here ultimately. And I think that's a really, really good dynamic because I feel like every time shows would like introduce like new characters in order to like kind of further the plot and up the stake later on, they would always like try to make them like all be on the same page. But I like that Lost does, again, is continuing what it does best in terms of making this character centered and showing that each character here has their own different motivations. And Lapidus has a different motivation than Daniel, that has a different motivation than Keamy from Charlotte, because that also is interacting with everything that's going on the island as well, where once they get Desmond down to the sick bay, when they get to the ship, Saeed gets the phone from Frank in exchange for trading up his gun and calls the beach. And upon hearing what happened, Daniel immediately figures out what's going on. And he's like, oh shit. Like, he's like, has Desmond been exposed to any electromagnetic energy? And I love how they tell him without telling him, like he figures it out in 5 seconds. Cause they're like, because they are not knowing, tells him what he needs to know. Because in order to kind of, foreshadow a little bit, Daniel is there to kind of research the weird electromagnetic energy that is on the island. Again, that was
that weird, undefined, vaguely scientific energy.
Yes, that has been was being bottled up by the Swan and let out in small bursts every time that Desmond would enter the numbers when he was in the Swan station, that when he deviated and didn't enter it down one time, accidentally ended up causing the plane to crash, all of that. So
I think I crashed your plane.
Accidentally?
Pretty much. Accidentally.
He didn't know the plane was there.
That's true. That's true. But
I mean, he literally is on the island to perform that task and missed that day.
That one convenient day. How fortuitous of that day. Again, just keeping the foreshadowing going. But essentially, Daniel tells Jack and Juliet on the beach, and Charlotte, of course, being like, "Oh, well, we shouldn't tell them because they might not understand." But again, more like just kind of like Charlotte keeping things secret for the sake of keeping things secret. It's,
we have to fill 14 episodes this season,
true.
so
That's
let's
true.
just cool off. We can't reveal that.
Yeah, Daniel is basically saying that, look, like we've had this happen before where for some reason, if people are exposed to electromagnetic energy and they go back and forth between the island, they're like, we've already established that there's some sort of a time discrepancy between when you leave the island and when you land on the ship. And Saeed even comments on that on the ship as well when he's talking to Lapidus. He's like, how the hell was it dusk when we took off, but it's midday now? Like, that doesn't make any sense at all.
There's still the question of how has it been days for them, but minutes for them. But
minutes.
they're talking in real time.
Exactly.
Like,
so
okay,
all of that
islandy.
All of that is surrounding it. And Daniel basically tells Jack that, look, like this has happened before where all of a sudden somebody will start like kind of flashing back and forth between the past. And we immediately figure this out by when they break into the sick bay and Saeed gets Desmond on the phone with Daniel. And Daniel's like, he's like, Desmond, I need you to tell me what year it is. And Desmond is like, it's 1996. And then you just see the look on Saeed's face. And he's like, oh, shit. And also the Fisher Stevens character is immediately like, oh, my God, it's happening to you as well. Again, just brilliant little like seeds being sprinkled in as far as like, oh, this is not the first time this has happened. This is what's it called? This is kind of like, so again, like all of this just kind of tying together all of this timey-wimey, and it's brilliant how he was able to deliver all of this in such a clear, concise manner with subject matter that frankly I feel like would be confusing to even the most devout like time travel movie nut.
If only we had one in the in the conversation.
So now I'll go into my 15-minute explanation on the movie Primer. And no, I think the mechanics of this all work really well for me. I think it makes sense. I think Lost sets it up decently enough. And now they kind of get stuck in this episode. I'll bring up my one nitpick where there is no changing the future. Daniel Faraday claims that.
I think that also Avengers Endgame stole as well.
And then seemingly gets told at the end of this episode with the Desmond Hume will be your constant, that cannot be the case because obviously some of the future was changed.
Yes, some of it. It's that classic case of, okay, like there's always going to be nitpicks and flaws every time you introduce time travel in any way, shape, or form. And again, the fact that they're kind of already pulling a pre-endgame where it's like, oh, changing the past won't change the future. It's like, because again, there's the thing that was so interesting about what Lost is because up until this point, there was pretty much really only one kind of time travel story, which was, again, the for lack of a better word, the Groundhog Day effect. The whole thing of it's like, oh, you kind of just have to like keep going back and resetting everything because any micro change you make will like have drastic effects on the future ultimately. And I feel like Butterfly Effect, which ironically came out the same year that Lost premiered, was one of the first instances that tried to like mess around with that a little bit. And there's obviously been massive expansions on that ever since. Like I said, Avengers Endgame basically, in a way, used time travel to essentially set up the multiverse. But I want to talk about I want to pivot and talk about the emotional aspects of this as well, because it's ironic that Luke, as soon as you watched this episode, you were like, okay, now I know where Chris Nolan gets his time travel stuff from. And then I was literally on an episode with Mac and Rod yesterday on Mac's podcast talking about space movies. And of course, naturally, we brought up Interstellar. And immediately the idea of, oh, that you were my ghost. What's it called? Penny is my constant. It's like the influences, they're not exactly difficult to figure out.
Yeah, maybe it's not clear that Lost was the first thing, like, oh, time travel and emotional attachment, but it feels like this is one of the bigger, like I don't know, like anchors of that kind of trope. So again, Nolan kind of perfected that in Interstellar. He did it with a bromance in Tenet. Like people don't get Tenet. You just got to watch it again. Trust me.
Yeah.
And
don't
yeah,
try
it's just
too much about it. Just don't try to understand it. Just feel it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's
all
basically
vibes.
My two favorite tropes is time travel and power of love mashed into one 40-minute episode, and it's perfect. So
yeah, and also as well, like not even just the mechanics of it is the mechanics, I should say, of the storytelling, but the mechanics of the episode itself, like the editing as well. Like this is one of the best edited episodes of television as well. Like the way that they land those match cuts when Desmond travels back and forth between the present and the past. It's still to this day like kind of baffles me once again how this is once again a continuation of what we've been saying since we started this, which is that Lost was really changing the game in TV in all aspects of it. Not to mention the fact that in terms of, again, that's something that gets pulled right from another incredible space movie, 2001: A Space Odyssey, in the sense of how do you explain kind of massive changes over massive periods of time. Match cut it, like Desmond is leaning down to pick up change. All of a sudden he's back in the Kahana and he's like scraping at wood. He lurches to the side when he's walking down steps in 1996. All of a sudden he's leaning against a desk on the Kahana. It's like brilliant how they're able to match cut it and also continue to up the stakes by every time that he travels back and forth between each timeline, something like crazy has changed. He's back in 96. The rat's dead. He's back in the modern day. The Fisher Stevens character, Minkowski, like blacks out. And when he comes to, he's like stroking out ultimately, because that's the other instance in which they really, really up the stakes in terms of, and it's ironic that Desmond spent all of last season trying to stop Charlie from dying. And now in this one episode, he's like, we got to find a way to stabilize you or you're going to stroke out and die. Because as is shown when he travels back and meets with Daniel at Oxford in 1996, it's shown that, when the rat's conscious was traveling back and forth throughout time without anything to stabilize it, it strokes out and dies ultimately. And so already introducing those stakes as well. Again, it's really impressive how this is like a 40-minute movie within like kind of the greater construct of Lost.
Yeah, it's very Nolan in the sense that there's a literal timer that's going on within the episode, and it's not an actual clock counting down. It's Fisher Stevens slowly dying. And then, Desmond like explicitly says it like, this is what's going to happen to me if I don't figure this out. It's just really, really good stuff. Like you said, from a structural standpoint, this episode is really, really rock solid and adds very subtle things all the way through. For instance, like you're being told literally that it's his consciousness that's going back and forth. Desmond is not like physically moving back and forth through time. And they're showing that subtly by he's writing stuff on his hand, but when he comes back, it's not on his hand anymore because it's just his mind that's going. It's not his body traveling.
Yeah, and also kudos to Desmond for like having a memory of steel, because the fact that he's able to memorize those complex equations, like Daniel
memorized those numbers, man.
It's really impressive when he's like when you.
No, what I was worried that Penny was going to say her number and it was going to be the hatch numbers.
Yeah.
Like,
if that had happened, but again, Lindelof's a little bit self-aware. If that had happened, I would be a little bit like, no, stop.
1, 5, 2. No,
not again.
It's like when you're watching Hurley write on the lottery card.
Like,
no,
stop. And he's like running to like stop them from blowing up the hatch. It's like, no, the numbers, you can't do it. So now I want to dive into like the actual the title of the episode itself, A Constant. So according to ChatGPT, yes, I'm sorry. I know I use it. Get over it. The idea of a constant in theory, especially in mathematics and physics, refers to a quantity that remains unchanged under specific conditions or transformations. So obviously this is a concept that goes across all of math, science, what have you. And again, Lindelof.
Maybe I should explain this one. I've actually studied this stuff.
Oh, so well, you know what? In that case, go right ahead.
Yeah, because I was like, okay, the constant, it's an equation of some kind. It's a thing that never changes. Like the speed of light is a constant, like or you have something to measure against that. Like in this case, it's what are you in the future? What are you in the past? Compared to something that is in both states, and in this case Penny is that constant. So again, it's wonderfully executed math and emotion. It's like like the best kind of math, I guess.
Yeah,
well,
pretty much.
Lindelof is really good at this, and it's taking these complex ideas either philosophically or mathematically in this case, and he always knows the best way to define that to make it make sense to the audience, and that's to make it a person. And when you are able to take a complex idea and turn it into a person, then everyone understands that always.
Yeah. It's funny because that actually kind of dovetails with the whole mystery box nature of the show and kind of what initially when Lost aired, what people were taking away from the show versus what the show was actually trying to be about ultimately. Wherein, and Lindelof also talked about this as well when he was commenting on Severance when season 2, when that was airing, where he's like, the best answer to a mystery is a person, and that ironically, again, it all goes back to Desmond because Desmond ultimately was the answer to one of the first major mysteries introduced, which is what is inside the hatch. And that was also what made the season 2 premiere so compelling, is they finally blow open the hatch, they get inside, they find this like weird, like kind of 21st century setup on what they thought was an uninhabited tropical island. And it's a guy inside, it's Desmond. It's this dude who's been sitting here for 3 years punching these numbers into a computer that may or may not prevent the end of the world. It's like what the hell? And of course that raises all these different questions that have led us obviously all the way to here. So the idea of him taking a mathematical principle and applying that to like a person in real life, it's so funny to me how, again, kind of the back and forth between like logic and creativity, and how it always feels like those two are like always at battle with each other, except for like that one like kind of connecting instance. And in this case, again, it is, I hate to go back to it, but it is love, because everybody feels love. Everybody goes back to it. It's so funny because I feel like I'm literally quoting Anne Hathaway from Interstellar, because Interstellar is literally dealing with this exact same principle. It's honestly kind of insane.
The idea of there being like this principle of love that exists outside the constraints of time and space and all that, like kind of as these, like as the parallel lines of these things travel forward, love exists kind of all around it so that it can go backwards and forwards through space and through time. And like Interstellar does that, like almost literally showing you how that occurred.
Oh no, not almost.
Yeah.
It literally does it.
And in Lost, again, it is a person. It is a connection between two characters, Penny and Desmond, and the fact that the only way to get Penny to answer that phone was she had to love him. She had to love him enough and trust him enough that in 8 years, she was going to feel differently about him. He was going to stay the same and still telling her that he loves her. And she picks up the phone because of love. She doesn't pick it up because of any other reason.
Yeah, it's one of the few instances of like a sappy, cheesy romance, like actually.
But it's because the show does the work. Like you have everything before Desmond. You understand like his relationship to Penny, his relationship to Penny's father, why he left her, why he broke up with her, like all of that, backstory. It's like a Wuthering Heights novel. It is a class.
What a perfectly timed statement that is right there.
But it is like one of those old classic romantic novels, like, boy loves girl, but can't get father's approval. It's Dickensian. Like he has to earn the love of something that because
he's
to
win the boat race.
Yeah, because he's lower class, because he doesn't live in the world of Charles Widmore. He doesn't feel worthy of it. So he has to do these crazy feats of, joining the military, being in the monastery, going on this epic boat travel around the world, like boat race around the world. Like it is very like classic romantic novel-y.
And the other thing too, also just about the Desmond and Penny love story, and again, even more so establishing why Penny is Desmond's constant, is the fact that you again dovetailing with those other flashbacks you learn about Desmond in season 3, the fact that Desmond was kind of a mess before he met Penny. He was a wanderer, he was a Buddhist monk, he was in the military, like he didn't really know what he wanted to do, what he wanted from his life ultimately, which I feel like is something that's a lot more normalized now. But back then, obviously, the show was released throughout the mid to late 2000s, and obviously is referencing points throughout the 90s, and that was obviously a lot more stringent, especially in England as well. I mean, you want to talk about like something where like your class is like you are born into it, you live it, you die it, and you will die in it. That's something that's even more impressive, I feel like, is the fact that through all of that, like Penny ultimately made Desmond a better version of himself, so much so that he felt like that he did all this stuff because he felt like he wasn't worthy of her, because tying into all of the class stuff and all the stuff going into, with her father, Widmore. And so the fact that now it all kind of dovetails together, where her being his constant, the one thing that he's had throughout all these different periods of his life, is literally the thing now that's going to save his life, as he's flashing back and forth to a point where he's, again, going to die unless she calls him at this one point at this exact time. Like it truly is a testament to the human heart ultimately that she is able to do it. And again, it's like, it's funny because when Saeed's repairing the radio, he's like, I don't know the number yet. And he's like, well, you better find it out because this is only going to last for a couple minutes. And then he flashes, he gets the number from her. And then again, on a whim, on a hope that she will make that call 8 years later, and she does. And it resulted probably one of the most heart-wrenching, emotionally satisfying, just sappy, it really, it's one of the best moments of Lost. Again, it's the things that I will always, that all diehard Lost fans will always flash back to, pun intended, when it comes to this show. They're going to think of not Penny's boat and Charlie doing the sign of the cross as he accepts his fate. And they're going to think back to Desmond and Penny. Desmond, I love you, Penny, at the end of this episode. And it all comes full circle when, after that call, Desmond turns around and he finally recognizes and acknowledges Saeed by his name for the first time since the beginning of the episode. And yeah, it results in truly a magical 40 minutes.
Yeah,
everyone's been trying to recreate it since.
Yeah, I just want the quick cuts in the phone conversation, because it's one of the best phone conversations up there with Punch Drunk Love. Quick plug there.
Hey, there you go.
But that cutting back and forth when they're getting to the end after the phone's like been breaking up, I love you, Penny. I've always loved you. I'm so sorry. I love you. I love you too. I don't know where I am, but I'll find you, Des. I promise. No matter what, I'll come back to you. I won't give up. I promise. I love you. Like that cutting back and forth, just bam, 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 bam. You just get hammered.
Yeah, hitting you over the head with the emotional mallet. It's like, oh my God. Like, I had tears in my eyes. It was, man, it's been an emotional couple of weeks for me, between the last 2 weeks of Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which we're gonna cover next after this, between watching How to Train Your Dragon, the original, and crying 4 times during it on New Year's Day.
It is that good.
I do not sign off on that.
It is that good.
I've watched that movie too many times.
It's so good. It's so good, and it gets me every single time. Like the first flying sequence. Oh,
cool,
man, that is cinema magic right there. But yeah, it's all of this is to say that you can still be earnest with your storytelling. Ultimately, is what I'm trying to say, because we live in an age of cynicism right now, understandably so, given everything that's happening in the world. But again, as Tom Hanks says to Matt Damon at the end of Saving Private Ryan, you gotta earn it ultimately. And this show put in the legwork, and man, it earned it. And that is why The Constant, I think we can all safely agree and say, is the best episode of Lost, to say the least. Now, whether it is all downhill from here,
I think it's gonna be a fun
there
ride.
There are still some good episodes. It's gonna be a fun ride, to say the least. Like, oh, you thought that we were just that we were weird up until this point? Oh, we're only getting weirder.
You guys have a lot of fun stuff going forward. Like the show does change a little bit, but like you get character turns that when I rewatch the show, I always am anticipating those character turns. One in specific that I think ends up changing totally how you see a character.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting because, again, like, we're all in like weird spots where I'm assuming you have watched the show multiple times. I have only seen the show once through up until this point, and when the first time that I watched it, it was very, very spaced out. Like, I watched 1 and 2 kind of concentrated, and then I started 3, and Stranger in a Strange Land deterred me from watching the show for 2 years. And then when I came back to it after I graduated college, I binged all the rest of season 3 all the way through the final season, and I binged so much of it that like certain things fell through the cracks. And it's Luke's first time ever watching it, but with the way that he's been picking up on stuff, it's almost like he's been like watching the show his entire life. It's insane.
I wanted to bring up one thing because you guys had said something earlier on that I did agree with partially, but having watched the show fully 4 times, basically. I
will definitely watch this 4 times. I can guarantee you that.
I was struck the last time I watched it how good the Jin and Sun relationship is, and how emotionally satisfying basically their entire story arc is. So if you haven't like fully felt that yet, Luke, then it's coming, because
they've been a little absent for a bit.
I thought that Sun as a female character on the show was fairly well served. It does start by, like all the crap she has to go through and literally not talking for like a season and a half or whatever it is. But I think that story, that love story between them, really affected me the last time I watched it.
Yeah. Also, I want to mention that the Black Rock is mentioned in this episode. For some reason.
Yes, it is.
That big black rock.
I'm glad you got
I'm like,
that.
hey, that's the thing.
They're laying the seeds Nothing happens by accident on this
Which
island
says
and
you
on
have
this
to
show.
you have to watch very
You
carefully.
have to be paying attention. I say this to everybody who says they didn't answer anything. I'm like, you
They
guys are
didn't.
full
They
of
answered
shit.
a lot.
They answered everything. You just had to be paying attention.
Also,
Like I said,
Kevin Durant, poor man's Timothy Oliphant. There you go.
I can see it. I can see it. A little bit taller, a little bit bulkier.
Tim
way more
Oliphant's
Canadian,
pretty tall.
but I can see it. Tim Oliphant is really tall, but you know what it is? Every time they put Kevin Durant in something, it doesn't matter what he's in. He's always towering above everybody. He's probably not that much taller than me because I'm fairly tall, but he's always
I bet you he's
towering
6'3",
above
6'4".
like everybody. Probably. And I'm like, I'm 6'2", so like he's not that much taller than me, but it's like it's just enough. And also it's the fact that he's like so bulky and everything. Like immediately when you see him come up onto the surface of the ship and running towards the helicopter, you're like, oh,
this is
like
this
just
is a
the
dude
arms
that's
alone.
gonna
You're like
be important.
You're like,
here.
this is somebody who you would not want to mess with. Yeah. So I think that's everything that can be said about the concept. I'm sure we can talk for another 3 hours about this episode, but I wanted to pivot real quick to Night of the Seven Kingdoms and Luke, franchise addicts. I'm glad that we had you here as well because I can't remember the last time that I had a faster turnaround on a show, specifically a Game of Thrones spinoff show, where I went from being like, all right, this is pretty good when it starts off, and it's different than what I'm used to from Thrones. You know, it's not all the big crazy spectacle that House of the Dragon is, to fist pumping so hard that I thought my hand was gonna fall off my wrist at the end of episode 4 when Baelor rides in to to be the seventh man and to back up Dunk at the trial of 7. To the end of episode 5, which, oh man, I don't even know where to begin here. So real quick, Luke reviews, man.
Yeah, so I read the novella like years ago. I bought the novella. I was gonna read the whole series. I've read up until A Feast for Crows, so I have 2 books left, and I'm aware that this is kind of where the show diverged, more or less. So, and from what I remember, this is like exactly capturing the spirit of that novella. It's like it's kind of lighthearted. It's lower stakes. It's full just personal, like this guy and his little bald buddy during their adventures, just getting into trouble. How are they going to get out of trouble? What's it going to cost them? How are they going to grow? Just very simple storytelling that George Martin clearly like has a special love for, even compared to like the 50 characters he has in the main storyline. This is just like it's 2 guys. Like what are they up to? And the episode format is like short 30-minute blocks. That's all you need. You're like, it's too short. No, it's not too short. Nothing is ever too short. Nothing's ever too long. If it's good,
perfect length. Exactly. Yeah, and it's in order to bounce off of that, you're right. Like the simple kind of nature of the storytelling of this show, as opposed to Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, is way more of a welcome relief, I would say, than I was expecting. And again, it was a thing of where they very purposefully had the buildup of the Game of Thrones theme in the first episode before it has the cut to Dunk taking a shit, but it was necessary. Like all of that was just a red herring in order to clue you into these last 2 weeks, these last 2 episodes, where we're saying this in anticipation, in preparation for the finale that's going to air tonight. And man, I just was not expecting for this to essentially become not just Game of Thrones again, but the Game of Thrones that made us fall in love with Game of Thrones. Not this massive action spectacle, but again, the very small, intimate character stuff. Like it is characters that ultimately made us fall in love with the show in the first place. And the things that Peter Claffey is doing as an actor in this show are the things that I wish every performer on a TV show right now was doing. Because again, the small scale, the simple nature, the fact that this entire season revolves around a build-up to this trial that ultimately is nothing more than, a popular Game of Thrones term, a mummer's farce, because he was just trying to do the right thing when one of the latest psychotic Targaryens was just torturing this one random passerby just because of some stupid imagined slave that then results in this massive trial that gets the crown prince killed. Like out of nowhere. And it's one of the most insane reveals ever. Like, again, Luke, you read the novella. Anybody who read the novella knew the outcome of what was going to happen with the trial by 7, but the way that it was built up to and the way that it was executed at the end of episode 5. And again, the fact that they pull a classic season 1 Game of Thrones filming technique by having the entirety of the actual fight, be replaced by this flashback that shows Dunk as a child losing his best friend. But all of that is a very, very purposeful storytelling.
Flashbacks
once the trial
in the show.
Realize,
what a revelation!
What a concept!
Who's doing it these days?
Yeah. It really is. And it really goes to show, like, it really makes you empathize with Dunk in a way that I have not with a Game of Thrones character or a character in the universe of Ice and Fire in a very, very long time. When you realize as he's crying over Baelor's corpse and apologizing, just how much this guy has lost in his life. And in a way that it was so perfectly built up to, where, again, his best friend, his mom, the one knight who took pity on him, and saved his life, and now the crown prince who gave him a shot when nobody else was willing to. It's like, it really is good stuff. Luke, franchise addicts, what are your thoughts on Knight of the Seven Kingdoms so far up until this point, and in anticipation for the finale tonight?
I absolutely love it. My love for the Game of Thrones universe has been restored. I am not a House of Dragons or whatever the name of that show is fan. So in anticipation for that show, I had not read any of the Game of Thrones books, but I like history very much. So I read Fire and Blood because might as well just get the Spark Notes. And so there's a lot of like stuff within the Dunk and Egg series that gets mentioned within Fire and Blood, but it's not.
And also within Game of Thrones as well.
And
the show.
House of Dragons obviously is a section of Fire and Blood. But the so I knew like the major spoilers because obviously they talk about Baelor and why, ultimately certain people are king later on. So I had no hopes for this show at all. Nope. I thought it was going to be silly, and started off first 2 episodes absolutely in love. I'm like, this is Arya and the Hound basically as a TV show. They're not trying to do too much. They're keeping it to 35-minute episodes. This is perfect. I absolutely adore this show. I never want it to go away. I want it to always be like this forever on Sunday nights. And
I listen, according to showrunner Ira Parker, if he has his way, he's going to be making this show for the next 20 years.
Protect Egg at all costs. Little Egg is my man. He is the best. Him just like screaming and cheering is the best.
Awesome.
It's
so good.
I love how this show is essentially, at least this season of the show is essentially a sports movie. And I love sports, as you can probably tell. And it's like one of the best sports movies I've seen since A Knight's Tale.
I want to just read this one small tweet out I saved. Aegon just fulfilled the greatest fantasy of every man, yelling at the ref so hard he does what you say.
Yes.
Like, wait!
It was great. That was pretty great. And then fucking Dunk like does the whole. Also, I would say probably the greatest uses of the Game of Thrones theme possibly since
I will tell
original show.
Have you seen any of the Twitter or Instagram mashups where they put like Gonna Fly Now Rocky theme music when you So it's like bump, bump, and he's like getting up, and like as the music starts to hit, when Rocky starts doing the punching, he's like fucking beating the shit out.
Beating the ever living shit out of Aryan. And again, there is nothing more satisfying in a Game of Thrones show than seeing somebody like these little shits like Joffrey, like Ramsay, like Aryan just getting the ever living shit.
It was very much like The Mountain and Oberyn, where he like mounts him and you're like, oh shit.
Yes.
And because Dunk is so big that once
he's like what, 6'4"?
Yeah, once he gets on top of you, bam, you're done, man.
Yes. And I just, again, bringing it back to Egg for a second, I got to talk about this fucking kid, Dexter Soul Ansel. What the hell? This kid was born in 2014. This kid was born during the original run of Thrones. Like, what the hell? How is this kid this good? And like, oh man, you see the behind the scenes of him and Peter Claffey whenever they're doing interviews. This kid, oh man, he is just
it's like they shook the novella and he fell out.
Yeah. Yes.
Literally, it's like this kid has got more charm and more charisma than most full-grown actors that I know nowadays. It's insane, honestly, how fucking
I think the show's good
is.
enough, and I think the guy that's playing Dunk's performance is good enough that if Egg was like, I don't know, 20% not as good, the show would still work. But the fact that the kid performance is as good as like legendary now in 5 episodes, Marvel wishes they could do this.
Yeah. Also got to give a shout out to the supporting cast as well. Daniel Ings from The Gentleman as Lionel Baratheon, Robert Baratheon's great-grandfather, Finn Bennett as Aerion Targaryen, Bertie Carvel as Baelor Targaryen, rest in power, and Sam Spruill from Fargo Season 5 as Maekar Targaryen. Aegon and Maester Aemon, as we come to find out, father as well, because Maester Aemon is because that's the other thing too. Also, is because in relation to the original Game of Thrones show, this is so much closer than House of the Dragon was, which is only like, I would say like 100 so years after Aegon's conquest originally. Like there are characters in the show who again have
it's like 200 years before Game of Thrones.
I think it's only like 100.
Yeah, it's around there.
Like
yeah,
it's really
180.
It's really close.
We're like
a lot of
70
years.
or 80 years away from Game of Thrones in A Night of the Seven
Something
Kingdoms.
like that. Yes. Yeah, because Lionel is Robert's great grandfather. We also find out the Dunk apparently is Brienne's ancestor.
That was
I had no idea.
That
I think that's
seems
a big fan
convoluted.
theory.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it makes sense.
I think
honestly,
people
just
really
given,
want it to be, so it's just kind of become that.
Okay, so that's more of a
Yes,
fringe
yeah,
fan theory than anything else. Okay,
Like
got
tall,
it. I
tall
understand.
man has
And
tall,
also,
Well,
Yeah,
they want
exactly.
everything to be
But also,
connected
again,
always.
yeah, it's the class. It's the Marvel. It's the Marvel and Star Wars thing now applied to Game of Thrones, where now that we've got enough like series that like are like in somewhat relation to each other, we want there to be like.
That's why I'm
close
glad
connection between
Andor was
everything.
2 seasons. They got out. They didn't explain
Yeah.
any of the other characters and their connections to the Star
And they
Wars
didn't need
universe. Just get out of there.
Exactly. And they didn't need to because the storytelling was that good. And now we're living through Andor in real time because Greenland is about to become
My
Gorman. It's
God.
actually insane. But the last thing that I want to say is, before we get out of here, is like all of this is doing is just bringing back kind of in relation to me the story that Maester Aemon tells Jon in season 1 of Game of Thrones about. And now seeing all these figures that he's talking about in real time. He's like, my father was Maekar. We see Maekar. He's like, when they killed my brothers in the show, they did a little myth, but it's like when they killed my brother's grandson and then his son and then the children. And then obviously, again, with the interaction with the witch and the early reference to Summerhall and what's going on there. Like, this show is the perfect encapsulation of if you just want a great HBO show that happens to be set in the Game of Thrones verse and you don't necessarily know any of the deep connections or lore, cool. But if you are a Game of Thrones fiend like myself and you love seeing like all the different little interactions and connections between the characters while also being just a fucking bonus story, this show truly has it all. I feel like in a way that House of the Dragon sort of had in its first couple of episodes, but ultimately just gave up on when it realized that, like, no, we're a dragon explosion spectacle. Like, that's what we're focusing on. And the trailer showed that, like, yeah, you wanted the Battle of the Gullet, you're getting the Battle of the Gullet. And I'm like, so what I'll say to your point, Luke, about House of the Dragon is that, well, I completely understand if House of the Dragon is not for you. What I'll say is the fact that we could get kind of both of the 2 different shows in the same era that represent the 2 polar opposite aspects of Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones did really, really well, where you get the kind of the smaller, more intimate, character-based storytelling that made us fall in love with the show, but you could also have a show that does have the spectacle, which you love, which, again, I am a sucker for spectacle, so of course I'm going to love, and I love me some dragon action, so of course I'm going to watch every episode of House of the Dragon, even if it doesn't have the kind of, in-depth character-based stuff that made us fall in love with Thrones in the first place. But the fact that you could have both of those shows airing on HBO in 1 calendar year, to me, that is the beauty of being a Thrones fan and being a television fan in the modern day. So, yeah, that's kind of that's kind of all I've got going for. You guys got anything else?
Well, I want to say Maekar kind of got done dirty. He just looks bad in aspect to Baelor, but he kind of got the last laugh, and that Maekar is kind of a beast. And like was basically taking on 2 people and just knocked the shit out of Baelor, who was considered one of the best knights in the realm. So shout out to him, even though he has mostly shitty sons.
Baelor and Maekar were referred to. The Baelor and Maekar were referred to as the hammer and the anvil for the reason. And Maekar does somewhat learn his lesson because after the events of this, he basically sends Arian to Lys and it's like, don't come
broken
back.
man.
Like,
for son, broken, and kind of, obviously, I don't want to spoil any more than that. But
as Maester Aemon said, it's like he lived with the fact that he killed his brother till the end of his days.
Well,
like, he hopes he found some peace in the
and you
afterlife
see
just,
I mean, they did a good job in the show of like showing how well respected Baelor was, and like.
Yes.
But what I was saying is they did him dirty as like Maekar is kind of being an asshole to him all the time, like within the show.
Right.
But hopefully they'll show like how impactful, like he really did love his brother. Yeah. They really were like kind of the young up and coming leaders of the Targaryens for sure, because their 2 other brothers are just kind of doing nothing. The one is like
and also the fact that after Baelor's death, when their father Darren dies, Mykar's older brother, Ares,
Yeah.
who was between Baelor and Mykar, because that's the thing. Mykar is the
Yep.
fourth son, so he was like the last person who was going to inherit the throne. His brother Ares inherits the throne first, but then all of Ares' sons die, so then Mykar inherits the throne after
and then
him.
you get the back-to-back 4 sons.
Yeah, this is where you
Fourth
lose
son of
me.
the fourth son. But then we all know what happens when Egg, unfortunately,
We protect
does
Egg at all costs.
protect Egg at all costs. Oh man, oh, it's crazy. Oh man, guys, this has been an absolute blast. I've had so much fun recapping the best episode of Lost, and right now, the best Game of Thrones show since Game of Thrones. What's it called? Luke Reviews. Where can the good people
They
follow
can
you
follow
on
me
the
at Luke
interwebs?
Reviews on YouTube. Again, eventually, but I've been
waiting.
more focused on this novel project I'm writing, and the constant has very much lined up with the certain themes of love across impossible
Okay.
things.
I'm expecting a manuscript draft
Not soon, but it's coming. It's coming. I have it entirely
Sometime.
outlined. So
Man, wow.
All right.
Farther
All right.
than I
So
am on
that's
it's
mine.
like
to writing,
if the
that's
Little
all I can
Mermaid
say.
was not so wishy.
Oh,
What if it was real
Okay.
and honest,
Interesting.
and there was a
Ooh.
Cthulhu?
Okay.
like Splash?
Oh.
I don't know Splash.
Oh, Splash, but with Cthulhu. I like it.
I'm Hanks
I'm
in it?
in. Oh man, Franchise Addicts. Where can the good people follow you on the
Franchise
interwebs?
Addicts everywhere. And then, yeah, I think that's all we got going on. We've been on a hiatus from the Mad Max series, but we'll be back first week of March with Thunderdome.
Nice. Awesome. Looking forward to that. And of course, we'll be reuniting later today in order to watch Magnolia as the next instance of our Paul Thomas Anderson rewatch
Check out the Punch
series.
Drunk Love episode. Give it some love.
Yeah, check out the Punch Drunk Love episode.
Yeah.
We had some fun with that one, to say the least. You guys can follow me with everything going on at Movie Nerd Reviews across all platforms, at Official Talking TV Podcast across all platforms. Be sure to subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. Follow us if you're listening to us on Spotify. And as always, people, 12 seasons in a short film, and get lost. We'll see you guys next week.